Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I took time to acknowledge all the hard work that our personnel department and coaching staff and the collaborative effort we had that got us up to this point of the draft. And really the scouting department, there's a lot of guys that don't get a lot of credit, that do a lot of the work. That brings the players in here, and then you guys see the result of it, and we're selecting on draft day, and then hopefully we get a pretty good post-draft class as well. And especially in a year like this, we've had a transition, completely new, personnel department from the top down, and with the coaching side, and a lot of the guys that were held over in transition, they're going from two different systems, an old scouting system to a new scouting system, old schemes to new schemes, and they did a lot of really, really good work for us. And I just want to take time to thank those guys and appreciate the work they did. So with that, we'd like to open it up for questions.
D-Led?
Yeah, Terry and Coach, how do y'all feel with the 6 picks today, 4 defense and 2 offense?
Extremely excited about the 6 picks today and the 9 picks overall. I think we have an exceptional group of young men, and there's a lot of what you look for from coaches, from scouts, is passion and conviction. You want to bring in players that you love, and we love this draft class. We're obviously working on the undrafted. We'll start working on undrafted free agents, and we're going to love that class as well. But we're extremely excited about this class. If you look top to bottom at every single player, you're going to see smart, tough, high character, and versatile guys that can be multiple and can do some different things for us. So very excited about the class overall.
And for Coach, the linemen you got, yesterday with Jalen and Drew today. Where will you start them out at?
Well, again, they'll play multiple spots, D-Led, so we'll have good competition inside. Whether we put them out at tackle or put them inside, and Dalman can pull the football. So we'll have good competition. The best guys will start and earn their job. So that's the best thing we could do here, is to add competition and depth.
Jason Butt?
This can be for either. With Drew in particular, what did you like about him when scouting him and evaluating him, and just kind of what do you think he brings to this offense?
Well, again, he brings some versatility inside. He's a very smart, instinctive player. Like I said, you can't have enough guys that have the opportunity or the ability, to pull the football. We value that center guard flexibility, and obviously with somebody like Jalen, who has tackle guard flexibility. So with Drew, again, he was very productive player at center, but we'll have open competition. The best players will play, and the ones that don't, they got to have versatility if you want to get a helmet on game day. And we feel like those guys will bring that competition, and they'll have every opportunity to play.
We only have 10 in the draft room, and so the coaches, coordinators aren't in the room, but they're right down the hall, and we could hear Dwayne Ledford yelling and throwing stuff around his office every time we draft an offensive lineman. So he's pretty pumped.
And it kind of a random fact, you talk about life coming full circle. Dwayne Ledford was talking about how Drew's dad, Chris, helped him in San Francisco when he made a transition to center. I think it's pretty cool. He gets an opportunity to work with his son. And also the fact Chris was here in coaching under Jim Moore's staff.
And when did those factors at all, whether it was Dwayne, whether it was just knowing Chris, his history in the NFL, like did that help put him on your radar, or how did that process go where he was there for you guys, you guys interested in taking him?
I mean, it's all taken into account. I mean, it's part of his, obviously his background, his bio, but that's not why he's put on the radar. His play on the field is why he was on our radar. You're not going to reach. It doesn't matter. How good your father was at the position, but Drew earned it in his own right, and that's why he was on a lot of people's boards where he was.
Kelsey Conway?
The 2 defensive linemen you guys added today, what do you think they bring to the defense?
I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but they're big, they got length, and then they can play multiple spots. Whether they play outside on base downs or a 5 technique, good versatility, good length. And then the other thing you're looking for too is if you're not going to be a starter year one, you got to play on 4th down, and we feel like those guys can find value or find a spot there as well.
Yeah, he said it big, and I mean 35+ inch length. Like these guys are long, two power forwards, so they're definitely big, and we're excited about those guys.
And then with the addition of Avery and obviously Patterson a couple weeks ago, how do you feel about the return competition you're going to have now?
Just what you said. It's great competition. Obviously, Patterson has been a dynamic kick returner, and we expect him to be a dynamic kick returner for us. And then Avery, he'll have every opportunity to go back there and compete, whether it's punt returns or spot on defense, maybe offense. He's a very unique player.
Marquise said he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Michael Rothstein.
Hey, so I got a couple questions for you. First, it seemed like today there was a theme of taking team captains. Was that something that went into the evaluation process? And if so, what about that attracted maybe some of those players to you? Is there something to that?
It depends what program they're from, Michael. And how is it? Certainly, it helps if it's an authentic process and the players. The ones that voted for him, every situation is unique. I just think it's ironic, how it worked out. But that wasn't like, hey, we're taking this guy over him because he's a team captain. I've been part of situations where the coaches pick and you have, a voting process that may not be really what the vote is. So I don't know. I don't take too much account of that. It's really what the reputations are as a teammate. And sometimes it may be the way it works out. But it wasn't like Terry said, hey, take him. He was team captain. This guy wasn't. So.
And the second question I have is, as far as running back, y'all didn't really address that in the draft. Is that a place where maybe UDFA comes in, or do you look to add another veteran, maybe with Mike Davis there? Like, where do y'all feel like you stand at that position? Maybe that's a fair question for Terry.
Yeah, we'll look through. We talked about running backs throughout the draft, and we went through it, and there were times that running backs were in our clumps, and we took a player over them. So we discussed running backs throughout the draft. And to answer your question, yes, we'll be on the phone with some undrafted players that we covet, and we'll continue to work on bringing in veterans. So we discussed it throughout the draft, and it just didn't fall our way.
It's just one thing I think, Michael, that you'll realize. I mean, from us, the depth chart's never set. Like, you don't all of a sudden it's like work's over. Let's go week one. As you guys know, you guys been covering this stuff for a long time. And for our mindset, we're always at every position. We're going to look if players become available. We'll have discussions about them. You can, trades certainly can happen. Post June cuts, post draft cuts. I mean, you're always looking to add depth and the great thing is watching Terry out here this weekend. It wasn't like we were going to reach for somebody and overdraft somebody just because we needed to address that when we had better players graded higher at other spots. So it was fun to watch them operate.
Jeff Schultz.
Yeah, for either one of you, as you both looked at film of the players that you were inheriting and from last year, I noticed you basically drafted 2 defensive linemen, 2 offensive linemen, plus obviously Kyle. Were you sort of focused in on we have to get better up front on both sides of the ball? And I know that's standard for football, but I mean, just in general, as you looked at tape and moving forward.
I mean, I'll start off with that. And really, the 2, when we picked both offensive linemen, they were the best players on the board. So, yeah, it's easy. We do say you come in and you want to build inside out, and you want to get bigger and you want to get big, tough guys in the trenches. That's important, but when we picked those players, they were the best players on the board.
Yeah,
it wasn't so. Jeff, we didn't go through saying, "Hey, we're going to reach for these players just to get in some offensive linemen and defensive linemen." It really, those players were there. We had a lot of passion for them at that time, but we felt like we didn't reach for the players that we took. So you always want to get players on offensive line and the defensive line, but those were the best players when we took them.
And then my other question is, it's kind of along the same line, but you drafted 9 players. Do you generally have a thought going into the drafts, or even this draft in particular, where you think we're drafting 9 players, let's see if we can get 3 regulars out of this or 4 regulars out of this, or just what are your thoughts, particularly again stepping into a new situation with a new team here?
And Jeff, you're asking more so of those 9 players, you're saying you want this many starters, this many contributors. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and just any expectation level you have now that the draft is over of this class?
Yeah, well, with every player, the discussion is always, it starts with how's he going to make the 53? So what's the vision for the player? So if you're talking about a developmental player, for instance, okay, what's he going to do on fourth down? What's he going to do in the kicking game if he's developmental? How's he going to get to the active roster? Or is this going to be a player that we see on the practice squad and having to? So every player we're going to discuss what the vision is, what the fit is, how he's going to make the team, and how he's going to contribute. And so we have clear visions for all those players, and you want to have every player that you draft, you want them to end up making and contributing to your team. And even as we talk about these undrafted free agents, there's going to be a vision, because if there's not a vision for him either being a contributor or developing into helping you on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whenever we play,
Tuesdays
Tuesday
this year.
So if we don't have a clear vision for them helping you at some point, then they're not players that you want. But I will say every player that we drafted, we do have visions for those players developing into contributors or starters.
Allison Mastrangelo.
I know it literally just wrapped up for you guys a few minutes ago, but overall, with your first draft experience, what was kind of one moment that you enjoyed the most, and maybe something that you kind of learned, like, next time I'm going to do it a little bit differently?
It's a good question. And give it some thought. What really gets exciting is when you have the players, you put together your clumps of players that you want. And then, so you have 5 players and there's 15 picks, and you're just watching and you're hoping, you're trying to make sure, and you have superstitions like Kyle Smith. At one point, I wanted to move the magnets and stack them together, and Kyle said, "Don't touch them. You can't touch the magnets, or they'll go." So it's kind of cool with all the superstitions, and we go through it, and it's exciting whenever you actually make it to the player and you get the player, and the position coach gets excited. And so just that part of it. And because we always consider it, we get calls on the clock or we get calls prior to, and we consider moving back. And there's time we love certain players at times, but we want to move back because we want to maximize that pick. But then you do get nervous about someone taking the player, and it really does get exciting when those players are there. And just being on the phone with those players like we did, these are some passionate young men that are really excited. And when you say Atlanta, like, you could hear the families in the background cheering, and that was really fun. That was really fun. There's some passionate individuals. So I would say just the angst of waiting to see if the players make it to you, and then just the excitement of the coaches, the scouts, and then even the players.
Yeah, for me, the magnet thing was hilarious, but the phone calls are pretty special. When you get to talk to the kid, you hear their family. It's a really cool moment for the players and their families, of course. I mean, a lot of these guys, everybody's got a very cool story and a unique journey they get here. And when Terry and I get on the phone with them, it's a pretty cool moment for them to hear the excitement.
And I know obviously you will never, have any favorites, but what was it like seeing Kyle Pitts, your first round pick today, come in the Flowery Branch, get a tour? What was that like for you guys? Kind of surreal?
Well, it was good to have to look up at him. So I remember seeing him. He was the size I remember at Florida. And so I didn't have to look down on him. Damn, we got the height wrong. So it's always nice when you got to look up at him. So.
Yeah, he's a big man. He's a big man. And it was exciting just getting to spend a little bit of time with him. He has a nice, really nice family, and so, but he's a big man.
Charles Odom.
A follow-up on Avery. Was he drafted primarily for his return skills? And for Arthur, were you just kidding when you said he may play offense too?
No, I'm not kidding. He could play offense. He's got a role on defense, and I keep hitting the buzzword. I mean, he can play. How about this? Instead of saying versatility,
He's a joker.
You will say multiple spots, or like Terry likes to call it, the joker position. So maybe that New Orleans in him. But no, he's just a guy that comes in here. He's going to bring competition. That's what you want. You got to have guys that can compete and help us move the football in any way possible. And we feel Avery has a chance to do that.
And now that you've completed this first draft, how different was it for you to go through this process, knowing you've got to be concerned about all parts of offense, defense, special teams, not just one side of the ball?
Yeah, it's fun to be a part of it because you're sitting there and watching the strategy as we're going through and talking about guys in certain brackets that we're putting them in, waiting and you're strategically trying to address needs and taking the best players available. But yeah, it's fun to have to get to worry about the whole team.
And the cool thing about Arthur is that's his mindset. I know you can say there's defensive-minded head coaches or offensive-minded head coaches, but just like the question the other day about coaches needing to win now and GMs concerned about the future, and Arthur does not think like that. And even when you talk about the roster, he's concerned about the front seven, the secondary, the offensive line, all the areas. He wants to. It's all about the team and doing what's best for the team. He really thinks that way. So it's not So that's what makes those discussions a lot easier, because there's not a one-sided mindset with Arthur and the way he thinks.
All right. Don't see any follow-ups, so appreciate you guys jumping on with us today. I got one just came in from Maria Martin.
Okay, so this can be for both of you guys. Obviously, you hold all of these players in high regard on the football field, but you've talked so much about how you were looking for good players off the field. That's my dog growling, so I apologize. When you're vetting them personality-wise and just as human beings, what are you really looking for when you talk to those players?
Yeah, and it's really about we break it into two things. It's the personal character, and that's who they are as human beings, and what kind of people, like, are they good young men? And that's not to say you haven't made mistakes, because we've all made mistakes, but are they good young men that want to do the right things, and they're going to be good teammates. They're going to be on time. They're going to do what they're supposed to do. And then you get the football character. Do they love ball? Do they have passion? Like, they love the weight room? Are they film junkies? Are they like, you want to get into the guys that love ball, and that gets into the tape, because you're not going to say that this guy's passionate and loves football if he's not flying around every play. So we really believe that we brought in guys that not only are good young men off the field, but they are passionate and really love football. And I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you spent time with all of them, but when you spend time with them a little bit, you really feel that passion. And we're excited about them bringing that to this organization.
Was there one guy in particular where your personality kind of surprised you a little bit whenever you talked to them for the first time?
Well, not surprised, because we've talked to these guys, right? So we kind of know what to expect. But right before we called Darby, so I'm calling Darby, and Arthur said, "Get ready for this," and he was going nuts on the phone. He was so excited, and he starts telling me about the food that he was cooking there, and he was so pumped up. So all the guys were really good on the phone, but he was just a little bit different in a good way.
Yeah.